Rawteur. This lawsuit focused on the show P-Valley. It has a 94% popcorn score, solidly placing it among Starz' hit shows. I mean, needless to say, there were millions on the line, not only in past earnings, but future earnings as well. Because you see, season 3 finished production late 2024, but it hasn't been released yet, seemingly due to this lawsuit, among other things. Now, both stories revolve around Black women performers trying to keep their clubs alive. Now, in Soul Kittens, it's a Detroit cabaret on the brink of closing. In P-Valley, it's a Mississippi strip club called The Pink that's fighting off the same kind of pressure. The themes are also identical. There's sisterhood, redemption, empowerment. See, they're about women who are flawed but fierce, struggling to make something beautiful out of their chaos, right? Each story uses performance, singing in one, dancing in the other, as a metaphor for survival. Now, the creator of the cabaret show, Nicci Gilbert, she even points to mentorship as a shared thread. In her show, two characters called Good Conscience and Bad Conscience literally guide the women toward better choices. In P-Valley, that role shows up in the character like Uncle Clifford, the club's owner, who looks out for his dancers like family, right? But it's different packaging, but the same kind of emotional guidance. And then there's the looming threat. In both stories, someone or something is always trying to take the club away, whether it's developers, shady investors, some outside force that represents a world trying to crush what these women have already built. So to Gilbert, that collection of similarities, they felt too specific to just be a mere coincidence, right? She said this wasn't just two shows living in the same genre. It was her story reimagined with new names. Lionsgate and Starz, on the other hand, said these are exactly the kind of ideas that can't belong to anyone. They're standard ingredients in a club drama. Legally, that distinction, the line between coincidence and copying, is what this whole case came down to. Nicci Gilbert, she's best known as one of the singers from Brownstone, but long before P-Valley ever existed, she had her own creation, a musical called Soul Kittens Cabaret. She wrote it, directed it, toured it, and later released it on DVD back in 2011. Be sure to clap the like button so that future updates hit your homepage first. It was this soulful stage production about 7 women trying to save a once famous Detroit cabaret. Think glitzy costumes, R&B numbers, and moral lessons about friendship, purpose, and self-worth. The heart of it was this balance between temptation and redemption, literally personified through the two characters named Good Conscience and Bad Conscience, who helped steer the women toward their better selves. It wasn't just a club story. It was meant to be empowering, funny, and a little spiritual. Then in 2014, Gilbert says she tried to take it to the next level, right? She claims that her attorney set up a meeting with Lionsgate CEO in hopes of turning it into a TV series. So they met in Los Angeles, and according to her, the CEO of Lionsgate was enthusiastic. She says he told her that he loved one of the characters and that he'd take the material to his team. Now, before leaving, she handed over 2 scripts and a DVD of Soul Kittens Cabaret. And then, nothing. There were no more calls. There was no deal, no development. But 6 years later, P-Valley premiered on Starz, which of course is owned by Lionsgate. Gilbert tunes in and instantly, she says anyway, that she recognized pieces of her world. Women performers fighting to save their club. The struggles of balancing sensuality, survival, and self-respect. A leader who guides the women like a parent figure. Even the sense of looming danger over the business. To her, it looked and felt like the same show, just wearing a new outfit. So, in 2022, she decides to fight. Gilbert files a copyright infringement lawsuit against Lionsgate Starz, P-Valley creator Katori Hall, and the producers. Now, she says P-Valley illegally copied her story. She wants a jury trial and damages, but at its core, she says it's not just about the money. It's about the imbalance of power in entertainment. In her eyes, this was a story about how easy it is for a big story to take something from an independent creator who doesn't have the same access or muscle to defend it. That's how she framed it. A David versus Goliath moment, where she felt she was standing up for every artist who's ever pitched an idea, been told, "We'll be in touch," and later seen something eerily familiar show up on TV or on the big screen. Now, Katori Hall is not just a showrunner. She's a playwright with serious credentials, Pulitzer Prize winning, respected in theater circles, and already known for turning real-world stories into layered drama. Now, long before P-Valley ever hit TV, she'd been building her own universe called Pussy Valley. That's the original stage play P-Valley came from. Hall's world is completely different. It's raw, southern, and unapologetically real. The story isn't about saving a club in a feel-good way. It's about survival. It's set in the Mississippi Delta, a place that's both sensual and suffocating. The club, The Pink, isn't just a backdrop. It's a metaphor for the lives of its dancers and its owner, Uncle Clifford, a non-binary boss trying to keep the lights on while protecting a chosen family. It's not Detroit glam, it's sweat, grit, and neon. When the lawsuit dropped, Hall said she was blindsided. She told the court she'd never seen or read Soul Kittens Cabaret in her life, and to prove that, she opened up her entire creative vault. During discovery, she handed over more than 16,000 pages of material. Early drafts, scripts, outlines, research notes, everything, just to show her process. The big moment came when her team found an old email from 2009 with an early draft of Pussy Valley attached. That script already had the bones of P-Valley. Characters like Uncle Clifford, Mercedes, Autumn Night, and Miss Mississippi were right there. It proved she'd been building this world years before Gilbert's 2014 pitch meeting with Lionsgate. Hall later said exposing that much of her creative process felt like a violation, like handing over pages from her diary, which is understandable. But she said she did it to clear her name, and in the end, it worked. To her, the two projects might share a broad idea: women performing to survive, but the spirit, the tone, and the execution are night and day. That became the foundation of her defense. P-Valley wasn't copied. It was born from her own experience, her own pen, and her own voice. When the case reached federal court in late 2023, things took a hard turn against Nicci Gilbert. Before it could even make it to a jury, U.S. District Judge Stephen V. Wilson in California granted a summary judgment in favor of Lionsgate, Starz, and Katori Hall. That's basically the judge saying, we don't even need a trial for this. The facts don't add up to a real copyright issue. He ruled that no reasonable jury could find Soul Kittens Cabaret and P-Valley to be substantially similar. The court made two big moves that sealed the deal. First, it threw out Gilbert's expert witness report. The judge said the expert didn't bring any real analysis, just the same repeated broad comparisons Gilbert had already made herself. Second, he looked directly at the two stories, side by side. He said, sure, both are dramas about black women in a club setting, but that's where the similarities end. He pointed out that the plots, the tone, the structures are completely different. Soul Kittens was described as spiritual, musical, and uplifting, while P-Valley was grittier, queer, and set deep in the South. Even the characters moved in different emotional spaces. The court called Gilbert's overlaps abstract ideas and stock concepts, meaning They're too general to be protected under copyright law. By the end of it, Judge Wilson ruled that P-Valley didn't steal anything protectable from Soul Kittens Cabaret. The case was dismissed without a trial, leaving Gilbert frustrated. She'd fought to get in front of a jury, and now she wouldn't get the chance. After the district court shut her down, Nicci Gilbert wasn't ready to walk away. She appealed, taking her case to the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals in 2024. Her hope was that a higher court might see something the lower one didn't. But the appellate judges ended up agreeing with the first ruling completely. In December 2024, a 3-judge panel unanimously upheld the dismissal. They said in plain terms, Soul Kittens Cabaret and P-Valley just aren't substantially similar under copyright law. Here's what that means. The court used what's called the extrinsic test, which basically breaks down the works piece by piece, plots, characters, themes, dialogue, all of it, and filters out anything that isn't protectable. Generic ideas, standard setting, familiar archetype, those don't count. They're considered scenes affaires, or scenes that must be done. For example, a detective questioning a suspect in a crime drama, or a performer dealing with stage nerves in a cabaret story, those belong to everyone, not just one person. When the judges stripped out all of that unprotectable stuff, they said the remaining creative elements in Soul Kittens and P-Valley were too different to count as copying. They described the overlap as random similarities scattered throughout, the kind of coincidental resemblances that show up in any two works dealing with the same broad theme. They even used a specific example, the casino subplot. In P-Valley, that storyline is a huge part of the show, shaping multiple episodes and character arcs. In Soul Kittens, it's barely a mention. That kind of difference kept popping up. The judges also cited a well-known case, Funky Films versus Time Warner, where a plaintiff once tried to claim that HBO's 6 Feet Under copied their screenplay about a family-run funeral home. The court threw that one out too, saying you can't copyright a general setting or idea. It's the same principle here. Because the Ninth Circuit said the works weren't substantially similar, they didn't even bother with the question of access, something that we talk about a lot, something that I get called all types of epithets and very mean words when discussing the Sophia Stewart case in the other video, which you can check out. I'll probably put it up here. Now, whether Lionsgate ever saw Gilbert's script or not no longer mattered. The creative content simply wasn't close enough for a jury to consider. So, by the end of 2024, the appeals court officially closed the door on Gilbert's case. But she still wasn't finished. The next step was her biggest gamble yet, the Supreme Court. So after losing in both the District Court and the Ninth Circuit, Nicci Gilbert took one final shot, the Supreme Court. She filed a petition asking the justices to review her case, basically saying the lower courts had gotten it wrong and that her work deserved a real trial. For her, it wasn't just about P-Valley anymore. It was about setting a precedent for smaller creators who believed their ideas were taken by big studios. But in October 2025, the Supreme Court quietly declined to hear it. No arguments, no commentary, just a one-line order denying review. That's how it goes most of the time. They take very few copyright cases, and this one didn't make the cut. That decision made the Ninth Circuit ruling final. The case was officially over, and P-Valley was legally cleared of any wrongdoing. But the story didn't end there, because losing at that level came with a price. The district court ordered Gilbert to pay roughly $170,000 in attorney's fees to Lionsgate and Starz. That's a heavy financial hit for an independent artist, and it turned what started as a fight for credit into a fight that left her in debt. For Gilbert, The Supreme Court's silence wasn't just a loss. It felt like confirmation that the system was built to protect the studios, not the creators. And for Katori Hall, it was the final stamp that her show was legally and publicly hers. Once the Supreme Court shut the door, both sides finally started talking publicly. And the way they framed their stories couldn't have been more different. Nicci Gilbert came out swinging. She said the decision didn't just affect her, it sent a message to small creators trying to protect their work. In interviews and social media posts, she said she might have lost in court, but she won in the court of public opinion. Her argument was that the legal system favors studios that can afford endless lawyers and motions. She called it unfair that her case never reached a jury, saying she was denied her chance to be heard. To her, this wasn't just about Soul Kittens Cabaret. It was about how Hollywood handles creators from the outside. She warned that this outcome would discourage other independent artists from coming forward when they think something's been taken from them. Meanwhile, Katori Hall finally broke her silence. During the lawsuit, she'd kept things professional and quiet, but after it ended, she let out a sigh of relief and spoke directly to fans. She said, "P-Valley is my original work," and described the entire legal process as emotionally draining. In the media, the story mostly leaned Hall's way. Headlines described her as vindicated and Gilbert as a cautionary tale. Even though Gilbert saw herself as a fighter for creative fairness, the industry narrative became about how easily idea theft claims can spiral without solid proof. And by the time it was over, both women walked away with scars. Hall regained her peace of mind, and Gilbert walked away convinced the system protects the powerful. But in the public eye, P-Valley was now officially, undeniably Katori Hall's show. So when you pull back and look at the whole thing, this lawsuit ended up being about way more than P-Valley or Soul Kittens Cabaret. It became a test case for how far copyright law really goes when art overlaps. The courts made it clear. You can't own an idea. You can only own the specific way you express said idea. Broad concepts like women trying to save a club or sisterhood under pressure are open territory. Anybody can tell that kind of story. What's protected are the details, the dialogue, the characters, the mood, the execution. For small creators, that's a tough reality because most ideas start broad, and proving someone copied your execution means showing near identical scenes, structure, or words. And that's an expensive fight, and as Gilbert learned, risky. If you lose, you might end up owing the studio money. For studios, though, the decision reinforced their safety net. It strengthened the defense known as parallel development. As long as they can show they created something independently and that it's different enough in its protected elements, they're likely in the clear. It also highlighted how judges have become gatekeepers against idea theft claims. They're literally filtering out cases built on vibe or coincidence before they ever reach a jury, which makes sense legally, but it also feeds that feeling a lot of artists have, which is that the system is built to protect those that are already on top. In the end, Nicci Gilbert left saying the system protects the powerful. Katori Hall left saying the truth protects itself. And the truth, at least in the eyes of the law, is that Soul Kittens and P-Valley may share a stage, but they're dancing to two completely different songs. And maybe that's the real takeaway. In Hollywood, stories echo each other all the time, but proving someone copied your echo is a whole different battle. Let me know what you think in the comments. Do you think that Soul Kittens Cabaret was actually copied from to make P-Valley? Or do you think that P-Valley actually is its own separate idea? Let me know in the comments below, and for more industry insights, check out this video right here.